I thought the category for Best Film was already spoken for when Oppenheimer came out back in July. But after seeing Killers of the Flower Moon this weekend, I honestly just don't know anymore. So Killers of the Flower Moon is Martin Scorsese's latest film release. It tells the story of the Osage Indian murders in Oklahoma back in the 1920s over their land that had oil on it. And also a little fun fact about this movie, this was the birth of the FBI. Though technically it was called the BOI back then. But yes, this was the birth of the FBI's investigation. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, and Robert De Niro. All three of them did an amazing job. But I want to start on Leonardo DiCaprio first, since so many are saying that this was his best performance. So this film marks like the sixth time that Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio are working together on a film. I mean, they've already done multiple films together. I think Leonardo DiCaprio is Scorsese's go-to guy when it comes to films like this. He plays our main character, whose name is Ernest Burkhart. He is a former soldier returning home from the war and later works as a taxi driver, which is actually how he meets Lily Gladstone's character, and they fall in love together. Sorry for the broad, explanations, but I'm also trying to keep this spoiler free because I don't want to ruin it for anybody who's planning on going to go see this movie. Although this was a great performance by Leonardo DiCaprio, I will not say that this was his best performance. I still think that title belongs to The Revenant, though I think it's better than Gangs of New York performance, because my top two Leonardo DiCaprio performances before this movie came out was The Revenant and Gangs of New York. This one pushes Gangs of New York out of the way. Killers of the Flower Moon, definitely number 2 when it comes to Leonardo DiCaprio's performances. Though this movie wasn't Leonardo DiCaprio's best performance, it was Lily Gladstone's best performance. I swear, she killed this role. I mean, this was Oscar worthy. If she does not win Best Actress for this role, something is seriously wrong with the people picking the Academy Awards. This role really works for her. I mean, it's a very symbolic role, because she's not just the wife of Ernest Burkhart. She sends the message that love is worth losing everything and standing up for people who are technically now your family, no matter what your situation is. But then again, blinded by love can do that. And it's something that we've seen before in other movies. I mean, I can think of right now maybe 2 movies that were probably the same way, where the main character was blinded by love. Also, Robert De Niro dominated his role as well. I mean, it's nice to see that even as he just turned 80 years old, he can still pull off that thuggish businessman persona that we all love from his other movies. But what was great about this movie was that nobody knew that that's what he was, what his true colors were. I mean, they all thought he was their friend. He was literally the wolf in sheep's clothing. I mean, on the outside to the audience, we could see that he was pulling off a friendly persona to gain these people's trust, but in everybody else's eyes, we could see snake in his eyes. All in all, if all 3 of them end up winning an Oscar, it would not surprise me. But however, I think Leonardo DiCaprio will have a tougher time, seeing that his biggest competition will be Cillian Murphy. Like I mentioned a little bit before, this isn't a story that's technically uncommon, where the main character is originally there and is there to do a job, but then is blinded by love with technically his enemy, and then he no longer wants to be a part of the job anymore. I mean, that's not something uncommon, but I mean, that was probably the only way they could get the story to work, so we could see it through the eyes of both the Osage Indians and the businessmen who were there to take shit that ain't theirs, because otherwise we probably would have just been seeing a movie about hateful people trying to steal stuff that ain't theirs. But I mean, even knowing that, the way they did it was really well done. I mean, the pacing, the drama, the epic suspense. Not a single minute was wasted in this movie. Either there was drama unfolding, there was scheming, or to the end, someone was getting killed. So I mean, there wasn't a minute wasted in this movie, and that's something that you can't really find a lot of directors who can do that, especially with a movie like this with the runtime it had. This movie was 3.5 hours, so I mean, that was actually a little bit longer than I was expecting. But when I found out it was 3.5 hours, I was like, wow, that's like an hour longer than I was expecting. I was expecting to be 2.5. Though, with how entranced I was in the story, I mean, it felt like a 2.5 hour movie. So, I mean, it felt really just breezed by with how into the movie I was. Though I will say, when I got to maybe the 2.5 hour mark, I really needed to go to the bathroom. But I didn't go because, I mean, I felt like I was going to miss something important if I did. So, I mean, I held it in, and by the time those end credits started rolling, I felt like I was going to explode. But it was worth it because it was a great ending the way they wrapped it up, because Scorsese kind of did it in a unique way. Also, I'm not going to give any spoilers, so you're going to have to see it to know how he ended it. But I mean, this was definitely a movie worth sitting through that. Killers of the Flower Moon was a great 3-hour flick, but when it comes to flicks in that runtime this year, I have to say that I think Oppenheimer I liked better. Now, maybe I'm just being biased because I'm a bigger fan of Christopher Nolan's movies than I am of Martin Scorsese's. But I will say that things got done more in Killers of the Flower Moon. There was a lot more action being done throughout the flick, whereas Oppenheimer was majority 90% drama. Without a doubt, Killers of the Flower Moon gets an A+. I mean, seriously great movie. Definitely worth going to see in theaters. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Alright, well that just about wraps up this movie review. If you guys have seen Killers of the Flower Moon, please comment here down below what your thoughts were on the flick. Also, if you like my other videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time!